Hello guys, the Sisters of Silence have arrived in Horus Heresy Legions today, and that means of course that it's time to go and take a first look at their cards. So let's get started with that. I'm gonna go ahead and activate, and as usual we're gonna start by going through their Warlords and then going through all their cards from cheapest to most expensive. Let's start with the basic Warlord, the rare, so the green Warlord, Amandera, Kendall. Now this is actually interesting. She has 1 attack and 30 health, which actually makes her the Warlord with the lowest attack in the game. Alright, and then let's take a look. She has a card, Greater Destiny, but she has an energy ability, which is choose a Sister of Silence infantry from your deck and draw it. I'm going to come back to her energy ability in a moment, but let's first start by going and checking what her special card, Greater Destiny, is. So, okay, so that's why she only has 1 attack. For 1 turn, okay, when you play the card, she permanently gains +1 attack and +3 health, but the card goes back to your deck and the cost increases by 2. So theoretically, by the time you play it for the 5th time in your 10 energy turn, you're gaining, wow, that would be 15 health potentially and 5 attack on top of everything you got before. So she could potentially become the most powerful Warlord in the game. That's very interesting. And then of course, coming back to her energy ability, what makes this interesting is you draw a card out of your deck, but it's specifically an infantry card. So it means every time you use the ability, the odds of drawing Greater Destiny again increase slightly. So that's a fun little mechanic. I haven't seen anything like that before. I wonder what it's gonna be like. And of course she has high initiative, so she has a very good chance of going first and playing Greater Destiny immediately or drawing a card out of her deck. Alright, let's quickly check her voice chat.
Trouble stirs, opponents approach.
Okay, well, I thought they would be silent because of sisters being the Sisters of Silence and Oaths, but I need to check the lore. Maybe she hadn't been fully inducted.
That will not be the only death we see this day.
I like that.
This is making it difficult to investigate. A necessary sacrifice for the good of our mission. There is no mercy for those who defy the Emperor.
I'm loving these voice chats. They're actually looking really good.
A small act can change the course of things.
There's so many times you can use any one of these. So, you know, the enemy starts playing units on the board, you can use that. You kill that unit, you can use that one. The enemy comes back, plays a bunch of units, you can play that one. One of your units dies while taking out a powerful enemy, you can say this line over there. You do a big board wipe.
There is no mercy for those who defy the Emperor.
That's perfect. And you just do a tiny bit of damage, but which kills a powerful enemy or kills the enemy. And there's this one.
A small act can change the course of things.
I like that. Actually, I'm feeling pretty good about her as a green Warlord. She actually seems to be one of the most powerful green Warlords, I think, in the game. Okay, next up we have their orange or epic rarity Warlord. Now this is more conventional. 2 attack, 35 health. No special card. Energy ability, draw a card. If you end with less than 5 cards, can act again. That's interesting. You can either use it to draw a card and then attack with her, or if you're really low on cards, you can use her ability here to actually fill up your hand and be able to find something better for the current or future situations. So that is, again, it's a very interesting mechanic. I haven't really had something like that before. So her special is making sure she never runs out of cards. I think that could be very handy. I'm just more intrigued right now by the Greater Destiny card, although it might be a little bit chance-based. Interesting. Coming back to Amandera, maybe this is the Warlord you want to have a deck which is built around card draw with to increase the chances of pulling out Greater Destiny. Alright, and of course we now have their legendary Genesia Kroll. 2 attack, 40 health, which is pretty normal. She does have a Reckoning. I was afraid that they might not give her one. And then she's got Battle Honor. That's pretty powerful. So if you use her to finish off the weak enemy troops, a friendly troop will start getting pretty buffed. And she does have high initiative. Sorry, this was medium. She does have high initiative, which is going to be very helpful again in just making sure you try to control the match as much as possible. I realized I didn't check the voice chats for the Epic Warlord. We'll get back to her in a moment. But let's go ahead and take a look at her Reckoning first. So this is her Reckoning, costs 20 energy, and it becomes -1 cost at the end of each turn if your opponent controls no troops. So basically, if you're actually managing to kill all of the enemy's troops every turn for 10 turns, then you can play her Reckoning. It's interesting. It's a little bit conditional. Like, it's not as guaranteed as, say, Conrad Curse's Reckoning, which goes down automatically every turn and starts at 20. She's got to work a little bit harder for it, but it should lean towards an aggressive playstyle. So what do you get once that happens? You become the Soulless Queen. Oh my god, look at that. The enemy Warlord has Sentence 2, and for 1 energy you deal 1 point of damage. So it basically means every turn for 1 energy, she can effectively deal 3 points of damage to the enemy Warlord, 1 from her ability, 2 from Sentenced, but more to the point, any tactics or units you have on the board are going to be hurting the enemy Warlord quickly. So once she becomes the Soulless Queen, you're well set up to just focus on the enemy Warlord and take him down quickly. I like that. Alright, check out her voice chats in both forms first. Let's see here.
A new obstruction approaches. After this battle, we won't be the only ones in silence.
They're not as good as Amandera's chat lines, I think.
Merely a setback, nothing more. I feared this moment would come to pass. They seem eager to taste Veracity's edge.
A lot more of these seem to be negative than, as in reactions to negative situations, I think, than with Amandera. They're still cool and useful, I like it. Let's go and see her Soulless Queen lines. Here we go.
Veracity will greet them like they deserve. Slit throats cannot beg for mercy.
Okay, that's just one of the coolest chat lines in the game.
They are only delaying the inevitable.
A little bit boring.
Clemency is no longer an option. Repentance won't cure mischief. The best answer to anger is silence.
Okay, they're pretty cool. I just felt Amandera's were the best so far. And of course, let's check Veronica Sulat's chat lines here.
I dreaded a hostile reception.
Boring.
Their throats will sharpen my bladed handles.
I guess you could play that when the enemy plays a couple of troops onto the board.
Resistance is futile.
And that's when you kill all those troops.
The unspoken sanction must not stop.
You could use that maybe when playing something powerful onto the board.
Such is his will. The souls of the innocent will serve the Emperor.
Okay, they're not bad. I actually like the voice acting on that. This seems sort of like dark and malevolent, which is pretty cool. Alright, with that, we've seen the Warlords. Let's get into the cards from cheapest to most expensive, and that actually means we're starting with their counterattack. So, their counterattack is pretty straightforward. Give +1 attack and +1 health to a troop. That's pretty nice. It's useful in a lot of different situations, so yeah, I think it's one of the neat ones in the game. It's got fantastic art as well. Look at that. It's like a Sister Silent skull with a part helmet on it. I love it. Alright, let's start going through those cards. We begin with Cadre Tactics. So give +1 to your units this turn. I mean, its effect is not bad, especially for its energy cost. Potentially, if you have a full board, you're doing an extra 6 points of damage for 1 energy. But I just feel that it's a little bit muted. I'm not sure if this is worth spending a spot in your deck for. So actually, it's +7 because your units includes your Warlord. So there's a big, but potentially a minimum of +1 damage to up to +7 damage. But I don't know. It's a good card. It's just with only 29 cards or 30 cards being able to be in your deck, I'm not completely certain if this is one to go with. Novice Sister. So this is one of those great cards I love. It's very cheap and it has good health. And that low attack doesn't matter because honestly you probably want to be spending it you want to be spending its turn most likely using its special ability. Again, it says give +1 to a friendly unit, which means you can give it to your Warlord. Now, it is the same energy cost as Cadre Tactics. Obviously, the difference between the two is Cadre Tactics can help all of your units on the board, but it takes up a slot in your deck, whereas Novice Sister gives you a body on the board, and it gives you that same ability, but only affecting one unit. Between the two cards, I prefer Novice Sister, just because I like one energy units with 3 health and helpful abilities. Pale Scourge. Deal 1 damage to all enemies, or 3 if they have Psycher. This is great. It's basically Frag Grenade from the Luna Wolves. So if we went to Sons of Horus, Luna Wolves, Sons of Horus, Frag Grenade is 1 damage to all enemies, and Pale Scourge is just the same thing but better, because if you have Psycher, it's 3 damage. So yes, yes, yes. Frag Grenade is very popular in Sons of Horus decks, and so Pale Scourge will play the same role. I love it. Next is interesting. It's an epic card for 1 energy. Steel Talon Hawk. Jam and deal 2 damage to a random enemy troop. Again, this is an excellent one. I mean, honestly, 1 energy to deal 2 damage is very favorable. There are cards, coming back to Sons of Horus again, which do that. Quickfire, 1 energy to deal 2 damage. And of course, the difference over here is that Steel Talon Hawk will only deal that 2 damage to an enemy troop, but it can be used to jam troops as well, which is very valuable, so I think this will be great. So right now, I feel if you need to have 1 energy cost cards in the deck, Pale Scourge and Steel Talon Hawk are by far the best. Cyber Jackals comes next. So this is a 2 energy unit with actually better than average stats, 2 attack and 3 health, so it'd be sort of worth it for that alone. It has Terror, which also has good synergy with cards which increase attack. So I'm sure there'll be more of those later on. And it has an extra bonus if any enemy troop has Psycher. That's not just if the troop they're attacking has Psycher. So it's decent, actually. It's slightly better than average, especially if you've got ways to increase attack in your deck. That'll make these guys very dangerous. Final Sacrifice. Destroy a friendly Sisters of Silence troop and a random enemy troop. Okay, so this is 2 energy with this effect, and it's basically the same as... Where's it gone over here? I'm looking for... Sedition's Gate. Destroy a friendly troop and a random enemy troop. There's a difference. Sedition's Gate can be used on any friendly troop. It doesn't have to be a World Eater, but it costs 3 energy. Whereas Sisters of Silence's Final Sacrifice is cheaper, but it only works on Sisters of Silence troops. So as long as your deck is mostly Sisters of Silence, this is actually a straight up upgrade over the World Eater's card. Oath of Silence next. Give +3 attack to a friendly unit this turn. That card was made for Cyber Jackals over here. But, it does say a friendly unit. You can give it to your Warlord as well. Which, of course, is probably going to help Genesia Kroll with her Battle Honor too. Interesting. Next up is a epic unit at 2 energy, Steel Foxes. So these guys are average stats for their energy cost, but of course they do have fast. They're probably not going to kill an enemy unit, but they do have a stun effect here, so these are closer to being a tactic. It's just that, of course, you cannot bypass front line with these guys, and they can, unlike tactics, hit units which have ward on them. I like it. I think this will be very popular. Like direct damage, fast troops, always useful. Winter Crows. So rally, stun an enemy troop with higher attack. This is alright. I say alright just because it's conditional. I generally am not a huge fan of cards which require certain things to happen. In this case, an enemy troop must be on the board with higher attack than them. But it could be useful. Maybe it's a Hail Mary against stuff like Desperate Defense until you can try to get stronger things onto the board later on. Witchfinders as a tactic. Give flank and +1 attack to a friendly troop. Okay, that's actually pretty cool. It's going to work again well with a whole bunch of other cards like Jackals, which will then be able to act immediately, as well as having their bonus, which will allow them to use terror better. And Witchfinders looks like that's a permanent buff to the troop, so for 4 energy, with using that with Jackals, you'll get a unit with 3 attack, 4 health, terror, and it's not bad at all. Flank, they can attack immediately. Cleansing Flame, I like this art. Deal 2 damage to any enemy and its adjacent units. It's basically like a artillery strike, which is concentrated. What's interesting is, again, if I was to compare that to some other cards, it's very similar to Excoriation Campaign from the Space Wolves, which is more expensive and it focuses only on the enemy warlord and adjacent units, whereas Cleansing Flame is cheaper and you can choose who it goes on. I guess the downside is Cleansing Flame can be stymied by ward because you have to target an enemy, but I think there's few enough units in the game with ward that Cleansing Flame is a superior card overall because of its lower cost. Very cool looking legendary Execution Blade. Let's take a look at this. Your warlord had +1 attack during your turn. Okay, it's actually in this case a slimmed down version of a card we've seen before. In the White Scars we had for 5 energy the White Tiger Dao, which gives your warlord +3 attack during your turn. Execution Blade isn't quite as good, but it's cheaper, so it's maybe easier to get into play. And of course it's going to support a couple of warlords, especially Janisha Kroll with her Battle Honor. Not so much Veronica Surath, who's probably wanting to keep drawing cards in her turn. And Amandera Kendall, as she eventually, with her Greater Destiny, gets stronger and stronger. Maybe like the extra +1 attack could make a difference. Interesting. I mean, this was obviously really optimized for Janisha Kroll. Ice Serpents, 3 energy common, completely average stats, but a very handy give cannot attack to your enemy until your next turn. This ability is very popular from the Night Lords, so I think that Ice Serpents will be quite a popular card to include for that effect. Like, giving cannot attack can really change the tempo of a game, as it buys you time. Prosecutor Mistress. Okay, so 3 energy, average stats, but it's area damage when it goes into play. That's excellent. I love that. So it's a combination of a stat unit with average stats, which would be worth it for 3 energy, as well as frag grenade. So effectively, like, this is worth 4 energy, and you get this thing's effect is worth 4 energy, and you get it for 3. I like that. Raven's Claw. Your warlord gains sneak attack and +1 this turn. Wow, that is great. It's another fantastic rally ability we see, and of course it's also great for Janisha because it's going to really help her with that battle honor of hers. Seeker Cadre. So this was from my reveals video, and a lot of people felt it's very powerful, and I agree, because you can use this to disable both units without ward, without taking any damage to Seeker Cadre, and as an emergency move you can use this to directly attack a unit with ward. That will probably kill Seeker Cadre, but it will strip ward and allow those units to be targeted by other effects. So I think this is very valuable. Coup De Grace. Alright, destroy a damaged enemy troop, draw a card. So again, we can compare this to other cards which have similar effects from the Salamanders deck. There was the very popular Ash and Bones for 3 energy, and Coup De Grace does the same effect, but also draws a card at a slightly increased energy cost. I think that's still not going to stop people from using it. It's going to be very, very desirable to be able to hard remove a damaged unit, so that's going in decks. Legendary troop, Euphemia King. Alright, so... oh my god, this is amazing! If your enemy has no troops, gain fast. So this was there to punish Angron. Alright. But again, like, coming back to synergies, Genesia Kroll is normally trying to kill all the enemy troops in her game or during her turn in order to decrease the cost of the Reckoning. If you're able to do that and still have 4 energy left, you can play Euphemia King, quickly hit the enemy Warlord for 6, she dies and her backlash triggers, which brings her back to your deck. That is cool. But honestly, even if you just put her on the board, the enemy has to focus on taking her out because she's so dangerous. So, I mean, that's a suboptimal use, but it basically means unless she gets jammed, you never lose her. She's always going to be there. Now, the interesting thing with Euphemia King is her backlash ability is maybe not what you ideally want if you're playing Amandera, because what you're trying to do with Amandera is lower the number of cards in your deck so that you can repeatedly play Greater Destiny. So if Euphemia King is constantly going back into your deck, it's always reducing the chances of that Greater Destiny coming up. Interesting. Fanatic Discipline. Give your Sisters of Silence +2 and sacrifice. Interesting. I like that ability. It's a little bit conditional. It's not bad. I personally feel I may not like to use this card just because many of the Sisters of Silence cards have relatively low health, and so it might be tough for them to live until their sacrifice gets triggered. Knight Centura. We've seen this in the events before with the Sisters of Silence Warlords, but it's a pretty neat unit. Average stats, but it has front line. And it deals damage equal to this troop's attack to an enemy troop. And so we've already seen there's a bunch of cards which buff attack values. So with 5 health, this lady is likely to survive until your next turn. And then if you can buff her, you can start using her to deal some pretty heavy damage out there. And of course, with so many of the Sisters of Silence troops having relatively low health, like nothing outstanding, front line could be very handy in order to try to protect your more valuable units. So the front line combined with a powerful ability makes this, I think, a very tempting card to put into decks. Silver Osprey. So this is a infantry squad, deal 2 damage when rallied. If it's a vehicle or titan, deal 3 extra. Below average stats, but it deals 2 damage. So I think this is handy as a do some damage and get a body on the board card. There'll be relatively few situations, I think, where you get to use it against a vehicle or titan weapon, but honestly, even the base ability, I think, is good. Raytine Armor. Your Warlord gains battle honor, heals 2. Oh yeah, there's 2 Warlords who are probably going to be attacking a lot. Amandera and Genesia, and being able to heal yourself when you kill stuff is very useful. That's obviously Raum's party trick from the Word Bearers. Where's Raum hanging out here? So at the bottom. Oh, did I miss Raum? Huh. Where did Raum go? Hey, I guess we don't get to see. Oh, there he is, Raum. Alright, so Raum has that battle honor, heals 2. Always puts it to good use, and I'm pretty certain, therefore, that the same effect coming for Sisters of Silence will be very handy. Okay, next is another 4 energy troop, the White Falcons. So this is flank and rally. Oh, this is cool. These guys are there to try to beat down the more powerful enemy troops. But honestly, even if there's not a high attack enemy troop out there, average stats with flank makes these guys pretty handy. So this is a good card as well. Captured Psycher. This one is interesting. It has outstanding stats for its energy cost, but, and there's a big but over here, if at the beginning of your turn you don't control another troop, this is useless. So I do not like this. It's too conditional. There's a lot of ways to remove units in this game, and the enemy is quite likely to just disable your other units and leave Captured Psycher out there. There's a watch out though. If you do plan on including the Sabotage card in your deck, so coming over to Imperial Army and including Sabotage, there's a very good combo for 6 energy of Sabotage together with Captured Psycher, which will give you a 6 energy unit with 7 attack, 7 health, which is better than average, so could be something to consider if you plan to have Sabotage in there. The other way you could leverage Captured Psycher is with Seeker Cadre, because again, for 6 energy you can attack Captured Psycher with Seeker Cadre, which will jam it, which then means for 6 energy you end up with a unit with 7 attack and 5 health, which is kind of average. Lady's Grace. So this is a vehicle, a Rhino. It is... I don't like this too much. It's anti-chaos tactic ability. I mean, it sort of affects area damage cards, because that's the most common area damage cards are chaos tactics. And for 0 energy during your turn, you can put in play 2 Novice Sisters, which could start buffing stuff. I just feel it's a little bit too gimmicky. There are too many things which have to go right to get full value out of Lady's Grace. I think that's a pass for me. White Ass were from my reveals video. This is hard removal for high attack enemy troops, so this is a card you definitely need to have in your deck. Hard removal is very, very valuable in this game. Put it in there. Witch Seeker. So 5 energy cost, for average stats, 5 attack, 5 health. Destroy a friendly troop to deal 5 damage to enemy Warlord. This could work with the tokens playstyle, so cards like which create troops, like the Lady's Grace. For 0 energy you get to create 2 Novice Sisters, and then for 1 energy you can destroy one of those to deal a ton of damage to the enemy Warlord, or you could just attack directly to inflict 5 damage. I mean, it's alright, it just feels it needs a lot of stuff to come together in order to get maximum value, so I'm not a huge fan. Ooh, look at that. It's a legendary 6 energy. Ebba Naroda. Alright, so very poor stats for 6 energy. But it's a healer, so draw 3 cards. For each sister is a silenced troop drawn, heal 2 to your units. That's to your troops and your Warlord. So... it's a low stat troop combined with card draw and potentially healing. It feels a bit disappointing, just mostly for its... maybe if it was slightly cheaper, 4 or 5 energy, I'd like this a lot more. 6 energy for average stats and 3 cards and maybe some heals. It feels expensive. I'll need to test this one out if I ever get the card. Iron Link. So I talked about the token lifestyle, a token playstyle. This is one of those. Again, 6 energy for average stats, but now you're also getting 2 Cyber Jackals in play. And potentially, if you did have Witch Seeker out there, you could use it to kill one of those Cyber Jackals immediately and deal 5 damage to enemy Warlord. So this is 6 energy for basically 3 attack plus 2 attack from each Cyber Jackal, so that's 7 attack plus 3 health from each Cyber Jackal. For 6 energy, you're getting 7 points of attack and 9 points of health out there, which is not bad. It's pretty good value. It's vulnerable to area removal. Pursuer Beasts. Put in play 2 Cyber Jackals and give +1 to attack and health to your Cyber Jackals. So 6 energy for 2 units, each with 3 attack and 4 health. So that's 6 energy for essentially 6 attack and 8 health, which is not bad. Interesting. It's basically a way of getting Cyber Jackals without putting too many Cyber Jackals in your deck. I'm a bit torn. I need to see. I just think there's better cards around this energy cost, such as the Cull, which we'll get to in a moment. Pursuer Mistress. This has stealth, and with sacrifice put in play 1 captured Psycher. Okay, so this is a better way of leveraging captured Psycher, I think. Because you put Pursuer Mistress on the board, she's got below average stats, but she has stealth, so she's quite likely to survive until your next turn, and then you can throw her into a powerful enemy unit, hopefully damaging or even killing it, and then end with captured Psycher on the board. And then you can hopefully get units to survive your turn, troops to survive your turn, so captured Psycher is not rendered useless. The Cull, this is fantastic. This is one of the best area damage cards because it refills your energy when killing units and it devastates Psychers, including Warlords. This is amazing. I love this card. Definitely put it in. Excruciatus Cadre. So, this has a 7 attack average stats, but it's anti-stealth and anti-precognition. It's disappointing otherwise, it's very conditional, but it could be... If you feel you're facing a lot of people with stealth on the ladder, especially if you're coming up against Night Lords, I think this will be an important card to include in there. And with average stats, I mean, it's not a waste if you're not facing a stealth heavy faction, because it's pretty okay value for energy. Frost Walls. Interesting, so, well below average stats, but if you have lots of troops in play, lots of Sisters of Silence troops in play, this will actually give an overall team buff. I don't like it just because it's conditional. In order to get optimum, even average value out of this unit, you must have at least 2 other Sisters of Silence troops in play during your turn. Then you can drop these guys and everyone gets buffed up, and that way you spend 7 energy and end up with ultimately 7 points of attack and 7 points of health. I think that needs too much to happen, so I don't like Frost Wolves so far. At 7 energy, Excruciatus Cadre looks more useful. Psychic Anathema's next, so jam and stun all enemy troops. Oh, this is an effect I've been waiting for so long. Mass jamming. Okay, it's a little bit expensive, but it also stuns all enemy troops, and if they're a demon, so if Lorgar's out there having a demon party, it deals a ton of damage to them all. I like this a lot. The other thing is jamming and stunning everyone is extra powerful if the enemy board is full, because it means they cannot play any troops during their turn. So I like this a lot. Mass jam is something I've wanted for such a long time. Frozen Heart at 8 energy, backlash. When this thing dies, put in play 1 Knight Centura and return this to your hand. So it's very expensive, poor stats, but when it dies, you do get a frontline troop and it goes back to your hand. I feel it's a bit gimmicky. I don't like Frozen Heart. I mean, you don't get much for 8 energy. By late game, you need heavy hitters, and this doesn't count. But speaking of heavy hitters, look at this thing, the Great Tithe. I love the art. It's the Emperor with a Sister of Silence. Destroy all troops in play, friendly and enemy, and deal 3 damage to enemy Warlord for every friendly troop destroyed. So once you set up a nice board, it's like if you have 6 units on the board, you're dealing 6 troops on the board, you're dealing 18 points of damage to the enemy, as well as wiping out all of his troops. Obviously, this favors a token playstyle, like we're getting lots of cheap troops on the board. But also, if you just manage to take control and the game's ticking down nicely, you can use this as a fantastic finisher. Almost there now. We've got an 8 energy epic card, White Tigers. So, flank and battle honor. So they've got below average health, but if they manage to come in and destroy a unit and survive, so ideally you want to use these to attack troops with 5 or less health. 5 or less attack. The rest of your units this turn, including your Warlord, get a powerful buff. So that could be very handy. Get a vehicle next, the Haran Pater Acquisitor. Alright. So this is one of those rare expensive cards which has stealth. And at the beginning of every one of your turns, it's going to reduce the cost of all your Sister of Silence troops by 2. So a couple of thoughts with this. The odds are, because when you play a 9 energy unit, you need it to act next turn. So you'll probably only benefit from its Relentless once, because in its second turn you're going to attack with it, and during the following turn the enemy will kill it. But the other problem I have with this is usually by late game, I personally struggle to have lots of cards in my hand by the time I'm spending 9 energy on things. So I'm not sure if you'll even get the full value out of the Relentless. Maybe it's most valuable for just being a high damage unit with stealth, so you can rely on it being able to attack next turn. Its Relentless ability is just a bonus on top. And the final card is Raptor Guard. So this is fantastic. It's a legendary with flank and terror, and it heals your Warlord. That's amazing. I love it. Include this card if you haven't, no doubts. Fits all the Warlords. Alright, so with that, we've come to the end of looking at the Sisters of Silence deck. In my next video, I'm going to be buying the pre-constructed store deck and testing it out on the ladder just to see how they play. And then, of course, after that, we'll be going into doing event runs for the next. Alright, so until next time, thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you on the battlefield. Bye for now.